Are we recording? Caitlin Olivia here, and this is week 21 of the weekly writing challenge. Last week, I asked you to go out and observe and write about a stranger for 7 minutes. This challenge was taken in all different directions. A bunch of short stories came in, character pieces. They were really fun to read. The first piece I want to tell you guys about is from a new recorder by the name of Psycho Cookie. Their piece had tapped into something I hadn't really thought about regarding strangers, but a feeling that's really familiar, which is when you see someone who you envy and you sort of imagine them having this really perfect life that's way better than yours. Psycho Cookie wrote, "She looks so confident, and it seems like she would know exactly what she wants to achieve in her life. Although her hands look very feminine and soft, they look like she could get anything she wants easily. It seems like she just needs to grab it, and it's hers. She could conquer the world." Next, I wanted to talk about Sarah Scott's piece called Strangers on the Elevator. And her piece is an observation of two parents in an elevator with their sick, brave daughter in her wheelchair. They're really trying to make the daughter feel better in her current state. And she writes it with a tone of this kind of daunting optimism that's really touching and sad. Definitely give that one a read. A recorder by the name of Mitch Record contributed a character piece of a man named Tom. From the first line to the last, he gives you a really fun, intimate portrait of this man. In a really short amount of time, though, it turns from something very fun to something more severe and really serious. He wrote, "He met the day with a sly nod, but no smile. Smiles were a waste of energy. His aura was so that from a distance, the more generous in society might take pity on Tom Middleton Prance, Prance being the more laughable of surnames. However, in close company, pity would give way to annoyance, and a quickened step in the opposite direction." Next is a really powerful piece by The Serpent the Charmer. It's called Disfigurement. He writes about a man whose face is scarred and disfigured, and as the narrator and other characters pass the man on the street, they have trouble looking at him. The Serpent the Charmer wrote, "Everyone he passes looks away, looks down, checks their phone, and for just a few fleeting moments I envy him, to be so ugly to the world that you become transparent, a walking ghost, living invisible." Finally, I wanted to mention another really powerful piece, a moment captured by C. Dirks. In it, the narrator is sitting behind a woman on a plane that hasn't taken off yet, and the woman is on the phone with her husband, who she's trying to convince to come on the plane. When he finally does, C. Dirks wrote, "His presence spread across the plane like a fog, impacting everyone and everything in its path, while hers seemed to shrink upon his arrival. She was small before he arrived, but suddenly she was tiny, shrinking by the minute." And so, this ends my time as guest curator of the Weekly Writing Challenge. It was inspiring to say the least, and a total honor to read all of your contributions. With that, I'll hand you over to your next curator of the Weekly Writing Challenge, the talented, the incomparable, that was not very Raven of you.
Thanks so much. And what is up? Hit record. I am That Was Not Very Raven of You. You can just call me Evan. This week, I want to talk to you a little bit about fear. Now, fear is a really funny thing because, sometimes we as humans are afraid of these really huge things like death or war, or sometimes we're afraid of these like really small, ridiculous things like, oh my God, these shoes. These shoes, I'm gonna fall. I'm gonna fall, aren't I? These shoes, I'm gonna fall in them. I'm gonna fall. But the thing is, that's the way fear is. It's not always logical. And sometimes our fears are just plain weird. So for this week's challenge, I want you to write a story about a character encountering their greatest fear. Now I say encountering and not necessarily facing, because facing a fear I think implies that you conquer it, which you definitely don't need to do for this story. You could write a story about a guy who's like totally afraid of planes and, his plane crashes, or a guy who's like afraid of spiders and a spider eats him. If you want, you could write something funny or strange. You could write something that involves horror, or you could write a really quiet, really minimalist piece about what it really means for that character to meet that fear. And one last little tip to consider, you may want to not reveal at the very beginning of your story what the fear is. You may want to draw that out a little bit, make the reader sort of wonder, what is this thing they're so afraid of? I'm really excited to see what you guys come up with, and please get your contributions in by the end of the day, Monday, March 9th, and I can't wait to read them. Thanks so much.